Hey buddy, what's up? It's Monday. So I recently read the article about Private Vanessa Guillen, I believe is her last name. I'm really awful at pronouncing names, so I could be wrong there. And I was just reading about it, about the tragedy of her going missing and them not finding her. And then I saw the meme that said that if she was a missing M16, the whole base would have gone to lockdown, which is so aggravating because it's true. Like, they're missing a weapon, they will lock down the entire base. Find it. I experienced that on the ship. They lost an M9 at one point, and the whole ship wasn't allowed to go home for 2 days while they searched everybody in every compartment trying to find this weapon. So I find it odd that they let a human being turn up missing and they didn't find her. I remember I was reading the article and I was thinking, I'm glad stuff like that doesn't happen in the Navy. And then I remembered something. My last year on the ship, we were getting dry dock before we went on deployment. So a year before I left the ship, we were in dry dock for 6 months. I went TAD to a different team, and I had a friend that went with me. Well, a co-worker, but her and I were close friends. We were so close, in fact, that she would regularly come over to my house with my ex, and we would all have dinner together. Her and I would actually hang out and go eat together and stuff while we were on shift and stuff like that. Like, we were just really close friends. For that duration, I would say we were actually like best friends. Like, I saw her literally like every day. And worked together for 6 months. We come back to our division. Now, once we move up to our division, we have a new LPO. He was actually an old LPO. He went TAD to Iraq for like a year and a half, which is why I did not know who he was. She did know him though. So we walk in to the office and we're talking, and he didn't even know who I was. He didn't know my name or anything like that, but he knew her. And she walked by and he's like, "Hey, you look cute today. Come sit on my lap." And he like patted his leg, and she kind of looked over and kind of smiled. I don't remember if she actually did or not. And the thing is, so I witnessed this. Now I know this is wrong, all right? This whole interaction is wrong. Now, luckily for me, I've had situations like this before. In fact, earlier in my Navy career, when I first got to the ship, stuff like this has happened twice. One time I was a brand new E4. I mean, like in the Navy or at the ship for 6 months. Never had any confrontations with everybody. In fact, I was TAD for the first 5 months I was on the ship, so I've only been with my division for a month. So I didn't know the chain of command very well or anything like that. This is about the time that Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed. In case you don't know, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a law that said that if you're gay in the military, that's fine, you can be gay. The military is not allowed to ask you if you're gay, but if you tell anybody you're gay, you get kicked out. It was basically a compromise done in the mid '90s, which was really unfair. I mean, think about it, like you'd have to lie every time you refer to your significant other or anything like that. I'm not here to talk about Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I'm just telling you what it was. So this is about time that was getting repealed. Now, it hasn't been repealed yet, but it was defunded, and they said it was no longer being acted upon. So we had a gay guy in the division who didn't really come out officially, but he told enough people that the rumors went around, so everybody pretty much knew he was gay at the time. Good guy, not a bad worker at all, and he never did any of the things that people at the time were afraid that gay people were going to do. He never like peeked in on the shower or anything like that. Like, whatever irrational fears people had at the time, he didn't do any of that. He was a good guy. So he left the room one time, and it was me, as like I said, a lowly E4, brand new, a couple E6s, and this E6. And as soon as he left the room, he started saying awful things. He was using derogatory terms that I don't want to say, but they're derogatory terms for gay people. And he made references to how he's going to die of AIDS and like just horrible stuff. Now, I worked a corporate job for 4 years before I joined the Navy, so I knew what human resources was. I knew like what you're allowed to say and what you weren't. Plus, I paid attention in the classes when you join the Navy about how you treat people and stuff. So I knew this was wrong. So in front of the other E6s and him, I stood up and I started I'm like, hey, you can't say that. Except the way I said it was a lot more laced with profanity because Navy. But I ended up getting an argument with him. And at first he's like, oh, well, he is. Well, and he kind of doubled down because I think the first class who said those things thought it was a joke. Like, thought that I really wasn't as mad as I was, but I was actually really mad. And, it was half about the fact that they were talking about my friend, but other just the pure unprofessionalism of it. Like, I hold the military to a higher standard than that. And also, I want to just point out here, this is like the only time this has happened in the military. Normally, the military has very high standards on this, and you have very good, what I call, peer control, where if your peer sees you doing something, they have no problem calling you out on it. So this argument ensues, and it lasts for only a few minutes. We only go back and forth 1 or 2 times, and he makes a reference to my rank and how new I am to the Navy. And at this point, I'm like, oh, okay, well then you're going to get kicked out of the Navy because I'm going to go to the department head and explain this entire argument to blah, blah. Now, as soon as I said department head, the other first classes perked up because as before they were trying to tell me like kind of like go away, they realized that I knew how to rectify the situation. Now, these first classes are not bad people. They weren't bad first classes by any means, but the thing is that in this particular case, I think they just found it better because they were, all 3 of them were first classes, to just kind of not get involved. You know, they didn't say it, they don't want to cause any trouble, but I wasn't standing for that. I was like, you know what? No, this is not okay. So as soon as I mentioned going to the department head, which by the way skips like 3 members of my chain of command, they perked up. They immediately, they're like, no, you're right, that's not okay. And pretty much what happened was one first class went to go calm down the one that said everything, and the other one came to me, and he's like, look, why don't you give us some time and we'll fix this, okay? Because my concern isn't with getting him in trouble. It's that he never says that again. So in my mind, if they fix it and they talk to him, the problem solved. The next day, actually, the first class who said the awful things is like, hey, I just want to let you know we're good. As if I was waiting for him to say that, but whatever. He actually, funny story, he actually had a pretty miserable life because he got out of the military right after that. But anyway, I don't really want to get into that because this video is going to be a little bit long anyway. The second experience I have is that I had a peer. Now, this is when I was about a year and a half into being in E4, which is not normal, but, you know, I like to take my time with things, so I was in E4 for a little longer than normal. There was another E4 who was a pain. Like, I didn't really like her too much. Nobody really liked her. Well, she ended up leaving after pissing somebody off, and another E4, there's like 3 of us in the room, and some E3 and below. So we had her peers, myself included, and her subordinates in this room. There's like 6 of us total. And one of the E4s just starts calling her a bunch of names, made references to her weight, made references to her attitude. Now, here's the thing. I don't necessarily disagree with what he said. I do disagree with how he said it. He said it in public. He wasn't venting to me privately like you normally do. Like, I can't even tell you how many times that, like, in the military you get mad at somebody and you kind of take, like, one of your peers or one of your friends aside and you just kind of vent. That's fine. But he was saying it in front of other people and her subordinates, and that's where my problem came in. So this time, since he was a peer and we had subordinates around, I took him to the side, to a private room, and I told him, like, hey man, that's never going to be said again. And he gets mad at me, and I'm like, dude, look, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just telling you right now, you will never say that again. If you do, like, you're going on report. Like, this is not going to be something that just slides by. Like, you just won't do that again. He got mad at me and he ended up walking out of the room. But he didn't say anything like that again, at least not when I was around. Back to me and my friend. We get back to the work center and I see this unfold, right? So I'm like, okay, so I have 2 different ways I can handle this. I can either be big and loud right here in the middle of the room in front of some of his peers and his subordinates, or I can talk to him privately, or maybe even a third option where I talk to one of his peers who then talks to him, which is not a bad idea to have. So which one do you think I did? Dude, I didn't do any of those things. I actually got mad at her. So the thing is that I came back from being TAD, and when I was TAD, I was in charge of about 20 people. I got an award down there. I was doing really phenomenal, and I was really expecting to carry that on into when I get back to my regular division, right? So I get up there, and I'm expecting to be a rock star still. So for our new LPO, our new leading petty officer, to not even know my name, but knew her, I kind of got resentful at her, and jealous of her. Never mind what he said. It was just the fact that they had prior interaction stuff, and from the second I met him, right, the very minute, he was already giving what I saw as favoritism to her. When I saw this exchange happen between him and her, I watched what she did, and she just kind of smiled, and so she didn't refuse it, right? So I'm like, oh well, she obviously, enjoyed the attention. The thing is, though, she didn't. She smiled and walked away or whatever she did for the same reason that I did what I did. It's because it was an uncomfortable situation and she wasn't sure how to react. She was a E5, but a junior E5. Her and I were in the Navy for about the same amount of time. It's just that because of she was in the Navy for a couple months longer than me, so she ended up getting promoted before me, which is totally fine. And additionally, she was actually super smart, so she scored really high on an exam. But so she deserved to get promoted, but she was still kind of junior, especially compared to this guy. And then again, there were a lot of people in this room when this happened. There was at least 2 other first classes who I respected, right? And I've worked for a couple years while he was gone in Iraq. But besides all that there were E5s in the room, there were a couple E4s. Like, this was not like an empty room. There's probably 8 or 9 people in this room. Nobody said anything. Nobody even looked at anything weird. So when I saw this happen, I'm like, okay, well, this is a normal thing. Why is she getting attention that I should be getting? Because I'm the one that just kicked butt down in TAD. I did a lot down there. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to sit on the dude's lap. Even if I was interested in men, it wouldn't have been him because he was bald. That's my standard. If I ever turn gay, I would want guys with nice hair, because I don't have nice hair. I don't know if that's how that works. But anyway, the thing is that I was mad at her and him, but not for the reasons I should have been. The thing is that I didn't say anything, and nobody else in the room did either, or at least not at that time. Now, to be fair, I have no idea what happened after. I don't know if somebody else from that room mentioned something to him. I don't know if one of his peers took him aside later, or I don't know if she complained. But I just know I didn't do anything. Now, here's why this is such a huge issue to me looking back on it, and this is why 10 years later, this is still something I remember very vividly. It's because when you don't call out behavior like that, it continues. He said that. He invited a person that was 15 years younger than him and 2 ranks below him, which is a huge no-no, in his own division, a subordinate, to sit on his lap in front of people because at the time he didn't see anything wrong with that. That'd be like me making racial jokes in public and me feeling like I can do that because I'm like, oh, obviously nobody here is going to have a problem with that. It's like, no, of course people have a problem with that stuff, and that's been embedded in our brain. But at that moment, at that point, with those people in that room in the Navy, he looked around and he did not think anybody would have a problem with him inviting somebody subordinate to him to sit on his lap. And that is the problem I have, because even to this day, every time you hear about something like this, you hear about something called rape culture. And now rape culture is a huge web of things but I just want to focus on one thing on it. It's that when you don't call people out on their, I try not to curse in these videos, but when you don't call people out on their messed up behaviors like that, they think it's okay to continue. And what I did was extremely weak, it was extremely selfish, and it was extremely petty. I was mad at the situation, but not for the right reasons. I took it out on her indirectly by not speaking up when I should have been. Like, me and her just spent 6 months working together. I should have been like her biggest advocate, like her older brother, and I wasn't. Now, as far as I know, and I hope this is a true statement, nothing negative ever happened for this. It's not like it's, as far as I know, it's not like I allowed that to happen and then something terrible happened after that. As far as I know, it was a relatively isolated incident there. But then he went and transferred to the schoolhouse in Pensacola. Now, in the schoolhouse, you have a huge problem with instructors and students. So much so that you have to take a class like once a year about why you won't do it. And what I worry about, and to this day, and I don't know what the answer is, and I just hope the answer is a positive one, but I don't know what he did in the schoolhouse. I don't know how his peers were, but I do know that we didn't speak up then, or at least I didn't speak up then, and then he was left unchecked in that behavior. So when you watch news and they talk about like how people need to speak up and how bystanders need to intervene, there are a lot worse cases than what I just described to you. I'm just describing something that I personally did and a failure that I had. But there are literally hundreds of cases where people fail to do what they need to do. And I'm not saying you can intervene in everything, but I am saying that generally speaking, you as a person know what's right or wrong. And there are even ways where if you don't want to get directly involved, there's ways you can get involved and talk to his peer. Like I could have talked to one of the other first classes and had him talk to. I could have talked to a chief who I thought would keep it sort of low key without like making too big of a deal out of it. I was an E4. I could have just talked to an E5, and that E5 would have had to have addressed it. There are so many things I could have done that even if I didn't have the audacity, we'll say, to confront it right then and there, or maybe to him face to face, I could have still done more. And man, I really hope that my lack of action didn't lead to anything bad down the line, because I really do think that when people do stuff like that and nobody says anything, nobody checks them, man, they do it again. Like, because it becomes okay to them. Anyway, man, I know this is a long video and I'm sorry about that. It was a story that I really felt like is important in today's context to kind of let you know about. And also, I think a lot of times dads don't really like want to tell you about bad things they did. And I think that sharing stuff that I've done that I'm not proud of, I think it would help you maybe feel like what you're supposed to and maybe stick with you a little more. Anyway, buddy, I hope you enjoyed my video. I love you, I'm proud of you, I miss you, and stay awesome.